Okay.
Pursuant to recently adopted amendments to the Illinois Open Meetings Act included in Public Act 101-0640, public bodies may, in certain circumstances, hold entirely virtual public meetings without a quorum physically present in any one location. Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2022-01 has extended this provision through the current date. As co-chair of the Council for Inclusion and Community, I have made the determination that it is not practical nor prudent to meet in person at this time. Accordingly, this meeting for the of the Council for Inclusion and Community is being conducted virtually with members participating through Zoom webinar platform. Assistant Village Manager Sharon Tanner is in the Village Hall conference room as required by the Open Meetings Act. I would like to call the meeting to order. May I please have a roll call?
Okay. Co-chair Guzman.
Here.
Co-chair Scott.
Here.
Okay. Member Dork.
Here.
Member Evans.
Here.
Member Flanagan.
Here.
Member Kirk McKenzie. Member Molly.
Here.
Member Moses. Okay. Member Mizell. Member Robbins.
Here.
Member Rubin.
Here.
And Member Young.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Noting that Reverend Mackenzie just joined the call,
Super.
and that I know Amy Mizell is planning to attend as well. Oh, and there she is.
Okay, perfect.
Great. Before we move on forward to the next step, which would be the approval of the meeting minutes, which we last met, which was back in June, we're gonna make a quick statement in regards to events. Approximately 1 month ago, our neighbors in Highland Park experienced nothing more than we described as a tragedy. While it may be a different zip code, it is considered to be part of our community. It is the place where we take our children to the dance studio, where we have our meals, we go to the movie theater, go to a hardware store, watch an outdoor concert, or even take the family for an ice cream or gelato. It is part of our community family. We sincerely send our condolences to the families whose loved ones were taken too early and offer our support to the survivors and their families. We would also like to recognize the endless work of the first responders that went to aid Highland Park, including those from Glencoe Public Safety. On July 4th, some members of this council were in downtown Glencoe for a family festival taking place near the gazebo in downtown prior to the scheduled 4th of July parade. We were told the festival had to end early and we were directed to calmly head home. The Park District team was calm and organized as they directed attendees to leave and to get their own personnel to safety. They also deserve to be recognized for how an event filled with families and children was safely and calmly dispersed. The village leadership and the village manager and assistant manager provided direct and clear decisions for our community safety, and we would like to thank them for that. We would also like to recognize and thank members of the Glencoe clergy, including our very own Reverend, who's part of our council, whom organized and held an interfaith candlelight vigil at Am Shalom, as well as an interfaith service on Sunday, July 10th at the Glencoe Union Church. For those of us who need more assistance in the aftermath of what happened, Family Services of Glencoe are here to help. They were there on July 4th. They have been there at every vigil and service. They opened their doors to all that needed them, and those doors continue to be open. It is difficult to find words of gratitude to give to each of these agencies involved. But thank you to each and every one of you for all that you did and continue to do. Our goal as a council is to make our community as welcoming, inclusive, and equal as possible. This council serves as an advisory board to the Village of Glencoe Board of Trustees and the village president, Howard Rowan. President Rowan has made a statement about the Highland Park shootings, which can be read on Glencoe Village's website. As an advisory council, there's little that we can do other than to follow the statutory laws and limitations of the state of Illinois and provide recommendations to the village board. The actions carried out on July 4th in Highland Park are without question reprehensible. Regardless of where your opinion falls on the topic of gun control or any other issue of law, we highly encourage you to get involved, contact your local state representative, your congressman or your senator, or volunteer your time to a cause, a group, or even attend a local or state meetings or even a town hall meeting. On that topic, the Glencoe Village Board will be having a meeting regarding the topic of gun control, which we highly encourage everyone to attend and will be announced on the village's website. At this time, I ask for a moment of silence and recognition for the survivors and those that passed due to the July 4th tragedy. Thank you all very much. And without ado, I think we're going to move forward. And Hillary's going to take on the next spot.
Thank you, Raphael. I think we need to approve the June 1st meeting minute. Oh, we didn't have meeting minutes. So it's not that. Oh yeah, the June 1st. Yes,
Yep.
sorry. We need to approve the June 1st meeting minutes.
Can I please take a roll call to vote?
Sorry, I didn't catch who made the motion in the second.
So moved.
Remember?
Second,
Okay. I will take a roll call vote. Co-Chair Guzman,
Yes.
Co-Chair Scott,
yes.
Member Bjork,
Yes.
Member Evans,
Yes.
Member Flanagan,
Yes.
Member Kirk McKenzie,
Yes.
Member Molly,
Yes.
Member Mizell,
Yes.
Member Robbins,
Yes.
Member Rubin,
Yes.
and Member Young.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Sharon. And now is the time that we call for public comment. And I apologize, Sharon, I don't have the language around that, but so can you help me out?
I can read it. I have it.
Oh, thank you.
This is the time in the meeting when a member of the public may comment on something that is not on the agenda. I will ask Sharon to read any public comments that were submitted prior to the meeting. And after that, I will ask if any members of the public would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment about something that is listed on the agenda, please hold your comment until that time. If a member of the public would like to make a comment now on something that is not on the agenda, please press the raise hand button on your computer if you are joining the meeting online, or *9 if you're joining by phone. The village's public comment rules limits comments to 3 minutes. So nothing, Sharon?
There are no members of the public signed in, and unfortunately, I ran into a technical difficulty with Outlook to check the email. So I will continue to check that during the meeting and report back later at the end of the meeting if there are any comments that were submitted in advance by email. I don't believe there were any, but I will double check once I get Outlook up and running properly.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, so on to our updates on council activities and initiatives. A lot, needless to say, has gone on since the last time we met. I have an irksome habit, I think it's irksome, of looking for silver linings. It's just not possible to do that in this situation. But what I can offer with regards to the July 4th events is that it has shown the strength of our community and also the strength of our partnerships in the community. So it was very much my pleasure, together with Raphael, to work with the Glencoe Clergy Association on mobilizing to organize the Vigil and Interfaith Service. And in doing so, it very quickly became clear that there are people in this community who are eager to do the work that we do with the GCIC. And it certainly feels, more relevant than ever in some ways. And so that was heartening to me, and also has kept us, Raphael and I, very busy since that time. So I will get back to the partnerships piece a little further down the road, but I want to just work chronologically or I'll forget things. And harken way back to the beginning of June when we started our installations in the farmers market. It was great. We had wonderful support from our committee, especially Bob and Amy and Sakura. And Raphael, obviously, and particularly, we ended up only having, well, so we had the event at the farmers market at the beginning of June, and then we had an event on a Saturday morning in the middle of June, as you likely all know, and then we did host an event on the morning of July 4th, which obviously we weren't able to finish. I had promised, if nothing else, to Raphael and to Sharon that I wanted to track the impact of these events, and I did do that, but I've had a little trouble going back to my notebook with all the interactions from the morning of the 4th. So I do promise to get those numbers to you. But just for context, we were giving away bracelets, we were giving away pride flags, we were taking signatures on our welcoming and inclusive community pledge. And then we were tracking interactions with the public, which were overwhelmingly positive. It really was just, it's hard to say, but it was extraordinary, especially the morning of the 4th when we were with our youngest members of the community, and they were so eager to engage with us, and their parents were so grateful to us for the messaging around GCIC. And so I will report back on those exact numbers when I get a little bit more courage to go back to that data, but I just am not there yet. But one thing I did want to report out on during our June Pride Month activation at the farmers market, the earlier activation, first Thursday in June, a constituent did raise some concerns about the term Latinx. There was someone had this member of the public was under the impression that we had used that term in some of our materials. I engaged with her. It was not a great interaction. We subsequently audited our GCIC communications and we found no use of the term Latinx. Up until that point, I actually didn't know this, so I'm really grateful to the member of the public for bringing this to my attention. The GCIC acknowledges, and I, on behalf of the GCIC, acknowledge that the term Latinx can be controversial and will be more mindful of its use in the future. Ultimately, the objective of the GCIC is inclusion, and no single term for a diverse, multi-ethnic, multinational community can ever truly reflect this. So just a bit of awareness on my end and so for the committee. So that was the farmers market and the 4th of July. Moving on to emphasizing these partnerships, as I mentioned, we worked closely with the interfaith. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? The Glencoe Clergy Association. Forgive me, on the interfaith service, and that resulted in some meaningful follow-up, particularly with the Racial Justice Committee at North Shore Methodist. I think obviously Reverend Kirk, this is well known to her as Barb Javor, who was one of our speakers back in last September when we held our last speaker series. They have a racial justice committee at their church. They have, as you probably remember, spent some time partnering with William and Glencoe Youth Services, who I'm going to have, if Anise can ever get connected, she could speak a little further to that. And the chairman of that committee has said, look, let's sit down and figure out where we can find common ground. So that's exciting. We'll be meeting with her later this month. We will be meeting with the Writers Theater later this month to pick up, I think, where we left off. You know, in our past interactions with them, they've had a transition in leadership. So we're going to re-engage with them, I believe, next week. And then obviously in the wake of the July 4th events, we also were in close conversation with Family Service of Glencoe and Christina, their leader. They have been understandably inundated since that time. So we had to table a conversation that we had started with them around the Nutria Transition Program, which, if you don't know, is moving to Glencoe into that space across from the gas station where I think it used to be like a Caning and Stray, maybe. I'm not sure. It was a real estate office right there next to the North Shore Exchange, and the Nutria Transition Program, which services students 18 to 23, I believe, will be moving into that space, and there's obviously some good opportunities for us to engage with them as well. So a lot going on in that regard. I feel like I'm talking a lot. So what I'd like to do now is ask, in no particular order, either John or Amy to give us an update on the speaker series, where we finally caught a break. Thanks a lot to John and Amy's hard work. And a quick update, I'm putting you on the spot, from Reverend Kirk McKenzie, as she is working closely with the Glencoe Historical Society. And I think we all want to hear what's going to be happening with that, and certainly think about ways that we can support. So Amy and John, or Reverend Kirk McKenzie, Catrice.
I'm happy to give a quick update on the speakers. So as we've discussed in past meetings, Amy and I and others have been working to find a speaker or group of speakers for this fall as part of the speaker series that we've contemplated over the course of the last year. We recently connected with an organization known as Refugee One, who, if folks aren't familiar with that organization, they do refugee resettlement services in and around Chicago. And we did some outreach to them to get some ideas for speakers, and they got back to us with one, possibly two individuals that they think, and we tend to agree, would be really good candidates. I don't want to give names yet because it's not finalized, but just a little bit on the folks in terms of their bios and backgrounds. One individual is a Russian Jewish refugee who came to the Chicago area as a child, as a refugee, has lived here for a long time and is now active taking in refugees on his own, much like he and his family were taken in when he was a child. And my understanding, and we're still kind of confirming all the details, is he's pretty involved with Refugee One, and is super excited. We kind of told him what we had in mind, and we get the sense he'd be very excited and eager to do it. The other individual is a refugee from Afghanistan who came here just in October 2001 with his family. And he was resettled through Refugee One. And we don't know all the details of his personal story, but based on what we know, it sounds like he would have a really compelling sort of personal story to share. We haven't yet connected directly with either individual. We wanted to talk to the group first, but Amy and I and Raphael, and I think Hillary as well, think that these folks would be great speakers that would hopefully be able to tell their personal stories in a way that could sort of uniquely demonstrate the importance of inclusion and welcoming communities. We would emphasize in our meetings with them that that's kind of our group's goals and objectives, and see if they could weave that into their their personal stories. Our thinking is that talking about inclusion and community in the abstract is one thing, but having someone sort of tell the story in a way that sort of brings it home in real life, and how hopefully it was a positive experience, or is a positive experience for them, and they can emphasize the importance of again, inclusivity at a community level, and how it really impacts positively people's lives. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of our recommendation. I think if folks agree that it's a good idea to move forward, Amy and I and whoever else wants to be involved, would go ahead and have a discussion with these folks, see if if they're still interested based on the additional detail we provide, and then start moving to the logistics of lining something up for probably late fall. I think is realistically the earliest it could happen, but will be somewhat, of course, that'll be dependent on their schedules. So that's where we're at.
Thank you so much, John. And I'm so grateful to you and to Amy for your hard work on this. I know it's been a bit of a slog, and you stayed on it, and now it's bearing fruit, which is exciting. So thank you, and more to come. Obviously, I think let's have Reverend Kirk McKenzie chime in, and then that may, I think, have some bearing on the timing of the speaker series, because she's looking at a fall event for St. Paul's as well. Reverend Kirk?
Yes. So I don't know if you're aware, but the Glencoe Historical Society is getting ready to premiere an exhibit on Blacks in Glencoe. And you can't have a conversation about Blacks in Glencoe without talking about St. Paul. I'm not sure if you know the history of St. Paul, but the very first Black homeowner in Glencoe, Homer Wilson, actually mortgaged his home to build the first church building of St. Paul, where our current church sits today at 336 Washington. So a team from St. Paul has been working very closely with the Glencoe Historical Society to really dig into that history and share a lot of the resources that we have, because there are still 7th generation members at St. Paul that are descendants of Homer Wilson. So that's really, led into a beautiful opportunity to not only really trace Homer Wilson's lineage, but also how that is connected to Glencoe, and really how more Blacks came to Glencoe as a result of Homer bringing his family and telling others about Glencoe. So as we've dug into these really powerful stories, and I mean, we've gone through, as you can imagine, all types of artifacts and pictures and yearbooks and wedding programs and things even from the church, I began to really uncover the power of these stories. And I started thinking, how many people haven't heard these stories and would be interested to know more? I really think that the exhibit, it will happen on September 17th, I think will even create some curiosity about St. Paul, because I meet members of the community and they'll say, I didn't even know that St. Paul existed. I didn't even know that you were, tucked back there. There's this beautiful exhibit. I won't give away too much, or I think Karen Edelson would be upset with me, but they really have almost created a replica of the church. And if you've ever been in the church, the stained glass, and you really will get this experience of walking into the church. So as I'm hearing you talk about the speakers series, John, it's a little bit of what I was thinking about. I know there's been some conversation about human library, which to me, again, is about the power of hearing the stories. Really one of our oldest members being one of the granddaughters of Homer Wilson, still living and being able to tell the story of how she grew up in Glencoe and what that meant to her, and why her children or grandchildren are still here. So I was just, thinking that this could be a wonderful opportunity to kick off, be it speaker series, storytelling, human library, leveraging this exhibit that will happen. And, you know, there's others that are not a part of St. Paul, but I think that have these spokes to Blacks in Glencoe. And I really see it as just being the first opportunity, because obviously we can talk about Blacks in Glencoe and St. Paul, but really then lead to other stories that I don't believe that we've heard, and really being able to tell the stories of how others got to Glencoe. And then most importantly, like, why do they stay? I mean, I think when I think about St. Paul, there's this family that's a part of the church whose family came to Glencoe, but there's others who don't necessarily live in the village, but feel that connection as being a part of family, even if it isn't by blood, that don't even know these stories. So as we've been working on this, I just thought this may be a really great opportunity to kick off some of that storytelling. I'm willing to open up, and I thought St. Paul might be a place where we could, you know, house this first round of storytelling, and even decide some other venues that we would go to from there. So again, this is going to happen on September 17th, and more information will come with the exhibit opening, but I think we could certainly tag on to the opening of that exhibit and invite others to be a part of this storytelling and really hear how some of the history of our village came to be and why families came, and really how it's influenced the village that we now know.
Thank you so much. That's really extraordinary. And I was seeing lots of bobbing heads as you were speaking, because I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us. Reverend Kirk McKenzie, do you, and you may not at this point, you mentioned the September 17th date. Is that the opening of the exhibit? Like, what are there?
Yes.
Okay, and so will there be an event, or?
There is going to be an event. I know that it's still being planned, but there is planned to be an opening reception, an event around that time frame. So even as I was looking at the calendar and wanting to bring this up and, you know, talk about, I think we could look at the end of September, you know, beginning of October to even kick this off in conjunction with.
Well, and certainly I think that we will want to amplify, you know, as the details of that event and the exhibit and all of the sort of opportunities for public engagement become ironed out. I think it's my view, and I would expect the committee will agree, that we have, that we should amplify the exhibit so that the public knows that it's going on, and knows that this is something that we think is really important. And I'm sure there's a way for us to do that doesn't take credit, or doesn't look like we're doing it, but that certainly suggests that the village is thrilled to support and engage around this.
I agree. And I think the Historical Society would very much welcome that, others to help spread the word about this opportunity to come and learn about history in Glencoe.
Just as, could we have, maybe we could have someone from the Historical Society at our next meeting. Our next meeting is the first Wednesday of September, which is September 7th, which is approximately, 10 days before the opening of the exhibit, not only to promote this, this wonderful exhibit, but also perhaps even to, as one of our members has told us previously, to get our name out there and advertising, contact the schools. I think it'd be a phenomenal segue for the schools who teach local Glencoe history. I know this because I remember last year having to color the map and go with my daughter to all the historical sites in Glencoe. But also my son, who was in middle school, they talked about the historical markers in Glencoe. And if this is something that's coming up, I think that Central School should be aware of this. And granted, we don't, we don't have the power to force the schools to make their kids go, but it is certainly something that we can promote and encourage, not only at our next meeting, but within our own social groups and within our own friends. Because to be frank with y'all, I mean, I didn't know this church was here until I moved here. And then all of a sudden, that's when I discovered more history of Glencoe. So I think that the fact that the granddaughter or the great granddaughter of the original founder is still around, and this theory that we're trying to build up with the human library, or those that are here in Glencoe that can speak to ongoing activities, such as the gentleman that Anise just interviewed for her article, Will Bernard. It's important to not only get speaker series of people that are of events going on around the world. Refugees are definitely still prominent because of what's going on in Ukraine and other parts of the world, but it's also, I think, important to encompass what's going on here within our 3 stoplights. And the promotion of that event I think would really help them. But I also think that if we then work our network, if we can, to encourage the school, let the school know that this is happening as well. I think it's something that we can get behind, and also as another aspect of the speaker series, introduce the gentleman that Anise had interviewed for her article.
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I can get on that right away. I will actually invite the president of the Glencoe Historical Society, and just Karen has been doing so much work and been at our church 2 and 3 times a week as we've been scanning so many documents and pictures. So I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'm sure she would love to join.
I would just add that the village has a strong partnership with the Glencoe Historical Society, and we do typically promote their events when they send us information about them in our weekly e-news. So we'll have this on our radar to be sure to be on the lookout for that. And if need be, we'll reach out directly to the Historical Society to be sure that we're able to amplify that.
We've thrown a lot at all of you guys, and I want to make sure that we circle back to Anise about her article. But is there, just before we go there, feedback on everything you just heard, either from Reverend Kirk McKenzie or from John and Amy or from myself or Raphael? Now is your opportunity to chime in.
Hey, just real quick on the events that we went to this summer to try to get a name out there. I got a chance to hang out with Bob and Amy. I had more donuts than I cared to admit at the sidewalk sale, thanks because of Hillary buying what seemed like 30 boxes of donuts, and to the point where we were giving, I think a high school girl took an entire box to give a sugar rush to her kid brother and kid sister. And I believe I can't remember, Sakura, did you were there as well, right? Right. So I only bring this up because I don't consider myself handsome nor conceited. So I need more of you people to come to the events, just so that way they know who we are, because it was really great because a lot of people signed the pledge. We were talking to a lot of people. And again, it was one of those, oh, I didn't know Glencoe had such a organization. And I mean, it was eye-opening. It was fun. But I know it was summertime. So I just like to ask, next time it comes around, not that I don't mind seeing Hillary, Bob, and Amy. I mean, it was all fun and good, especially the donuts. But if you can, again, just try to swing by and be more I guess not want to say available, but to see if it fits into your schedule. Because if you guys weren't at the farmer's market, they had a tamale guy right next to us, which was dangerous because he had hot tamales and fresh mangoes. That ice cream place, that's one of the original ice cream places. And I apologize. I know when I talk a lot about food and drink. I don't know why, but at the farmer's market, they also had the ice cream truck, and we were right in front of the truck. So it was a great chance for us to have kids pose with the framed out things to pass out. I think a kid took a boa when he wasn't supposed to. A lot of great interaction, a lot of giving away of bracelets, sunglasses, and it was overall an experience to really be out there and speaking with people. Hillary was the ultimate clerk in writing down who she spoke with, how long she spoke with. And aside from the interaction, our biggest results from when we said, I don't need your phone number, I don't need your email, just come say hi, grab a donut, get a bracelet, and people were very open into that. And we actually met several families that just moved to Glencoe. So that was I think a big step forward for our organization as a whole, because it's something that we haven't done that much in the past. But again, if you have the opportunity and you have the time, I know we all have busy careers and kids and responsibilities. Just please come on out next time, because like I said, it was too many donuts. It was overwhelming. But I mean, again, I appreciate everyone that came by, and I hope that in the next event that we have, it'll be just as successful as the ones in the past.
For the record, go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Yeah, in terms of the speakers program, would it make any sense perhaps to reach out through the Glencoe Clergy Association to find residents of Glencoe who would talk about their family's experience in America? I mean, we are all immigrants or descendants of immigrants or descendants of slaves. We all have stories in our families. And I think it would be really great if we could, perhaps working with the Clergy Association, identify residents who would be willing to come to the next presentation and talk about their family's experience. What do you think?
Vivek, I don't know if you want to jump in here. Reverend Kirk McKenzie hinted at this. It's definitely something that we are having conversations about more generally. I think that's exactly where we should, just my view, speaking as Hillary, I think that's exactly where we should go as a committee. And I think there's a number of different ways that we could do that. But you know, we have such a natural opportunity with this exhibit opening and with the speaker series to begin to do more of that storytelling. And so, yes, absolutely. I think that that's what we should do. Vivek and I had a conversation way back in May, and then we began to sort of socialize this idea a little bit more fully. So do you want to, can I put you on the spot and ask you to just
Sure.
share
I
what
think
you
that's great.
shared with me?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Bob. And I think what Catrice is working on and putting together, and also the refugee topic that John filled us in on earlier, are all great places to start. Again, I'm a big proponent of the conversation, right? And it starts, you know, has to start somewhere. I think these are all part of, you know, the community story. And I know that Anise has been working on this for a long time, putting, you know, doing the interviews and really giving us insight into other parts of our community that, you know, we don't know those stories. And I know that I've read each one of those that she's put out. And I think conversation, Bob, you're right. You know, whether it's firsthand or secondhand, or, you know, passed down from a couple of generations, those are great stories. So those are important stories. I think there's so many layers to this onion where it doesn't have to be a first-hand account, right? Those are part of it. Then there are those familial stories, and I think Reverend McKenzie was talking about that. You know, 7 generations. My personal story. I come from a farming family in India where my grandparents were illiterate. We don't know the names of 3 generations back. So it blows my mind that here in this community, we have people that have a tie for 7 generations. So yeah, I think it's a great idea, Bob. I mean, I don't know where to start, right? I think all of these are different starting points. And, you know, as Hillary and I, you know, discussed, and I know she talked to Raphael about it, and also to the Reverend, there's so many different places to start. So I think they're all great places, because everyone has a story. Again, like I said, whether it's firsthand or passed down from directly from a family member or through, you know, the family stories, those are all parts of our community story. And unless we listen and have the conversation, we're not going to know what those stories are.
And my guess again is that the Clergy Association would be a really good place to start. I'm sure they've heard stories from members of their congregations that would be very, very helpful to share. I mean, my maternal grandmother came from the Ukraine, a Russian Jew. And I remember her talking about Cossacks riding through the village, raping and killing. I was a little boy, but I remember these stories, and it has deeply influenced who I am today at the age of 75, how I look at the immigrant experience, the slave experience. We were all touched one way or another by something that drove relatives to come to this country. And they weren't easy trips for the most part. And I think it would be good to share those stories, just like I'm just delighted to hear of the collaboration between the history organization and AME. And by the way, you know, we live right next to you.
Yes, yes, I know we're neighbors, so.
So we all have stories. It would be great to share them.
So it's Amy, if you can hear me. So all I would just add, I love everything that's going on. Just couldn't say enough about how great I think the momentum of everything being discussed. When John and I got started working on the speaker thing, I just wanted to mention that I did approach North Shore Congregation because that was where I grew up as a temple. So I kind of knew some people there. And they actually are the ones who sent me to the refugee organization. But I originally went to them to see if there were members. So my only point is, I think whoever is the outreach, and couldn't be anybody, I think we probably have to be even more explicit to say, gee, it would be awesome if it would be somebody that you know that wouldn't mind talking, that's here in our community or at least close by. Because even when I did that, that kind of, steered me otherwise. And so I think if we'd like to add some of those folks to our next endeavor, I think we have to kind of really go straight at it then and literally say, no, don't send me somewhere else. Please send me to who you've got in the, whether it's the church or the temple or anything. So.
Thank you for saying that, Amy. Yeah, there's definitely, we are very much engaged in direct conversations, indirect conversations with the Glencoe Clergy Association, and they are very much a part. Again, we have Catrice Kirk McKenzie sitting right here on our dais with us, and that has already produced some really fruitful connections. And we're in conversation with the Methodists and with Barb Jabor specifically around how we can partner more closely. So that shouldn't be a hard thing to do. But to Amy's point, I think we need to just be really targeted in what it is that we're asking for. And, that's maybe a conversation for another time. We could plan to sort of really dig into that in September. I know that we wanted to sort of socialize this idea with the group. I think we probably need to have a serious conversation with Sharon and bring her into the loop and flesh out some of the things that Vivek specifically had proposed, including really, it's not just the Glencoe Clergy Association, it's the Glencoe Library, it's the Historical Society, it's Writers Theater. We have such a rich group of partners available, and this is too heavy of a lift for us to do alone. So there's just a real opportunity there for us to work together and be sort of a convener. And so I think that is, anyone else feel like, we don't need to all have you say, yes, 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 yes. But, is there anyone who is like, I don't like where this is headed, or should we continue the conversation with Sharon behind the scenes and then maybe bring some structure to it for our meeting back in September? Thank you.
Yeah, so the only other thing I would chime in with is I think that given what we've heard from Reverend McKenzie, I think I'd say, hey, that's a great opener. To me, I would let that be the entree and then take it the next step. John, if you're okay with that, that might push it into the winter months, but okay, I think let's do the most we can with that great, September 17th kickoff, right? And milk that a little more, right? For through the fall, and then move to the other one. So.
Yeah, I would agree. That was what I was gonna say. I think I love the idea of the September event. I think we should probably push the Refugee One speakers out in just so they're not jumbled together too close. December, January, whatever folks think. We can figure out the logistics. But I think having two events in the fall might be too much, but open to different views if people see it differently. Okay. Well,
Rel-
plan to talk to those two folks in the near term and update folks based on what we hear. Thanks, everybody.
That's awesome, John. Thank you. Related, as we were talking, as Raphael was giving his sort of cheerleading speech around the farmers market, which I really appreciated. Thank you. And I love the more mentions of food and drink, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But I started to wonder, Sharon, and this is, I'm literally thinking out loud, is there another opportunity for us to staff a Thursday table between now and the end of the year? And then
Yes.
might that, and again, you guys know I love the activations, could we could that be an opportunity for us to amplify what's happening at the historical society with St. Paul's, and have it be like a little satellite operation just to drum up excitement and interest? Would that be acceptable? I know we have to be careful about, we don't promote outside organizations, but the Glencoe Historical Society feels borderline internal to me.
Well, the village has an established relationship with the Glencoe Historical Society. So that is a bit different in that regard. So there is an established relationship there. I think certainly the village would be involved in amplifying the Historical Society's programming and information about it. And yes, is the answer to the question, are there opportunities to attend future farmers markets? And I'm glad you brought that up because it's an opportunity that's available to us. I'll check in with our staff that are working on special events. There may be some other special event opportunities that are coming up in the next couple months. In fact, I know there are, but I want to chat with them before I proffer them to the group. So that way I don't do something that she's going to say, wait a second, I already have this whole event planned. So let me follow up with the group either after the meeting or at our next meeting about other events, but certainly this is really easy for us to do. If you want to have, if a couple of members of the council or a few members of the council want to attend, we've got kind of a stock of materials that we've assembled. We've got the selfie frames, we've got the Glencoe welcomes bracelets. I have many Glencoe welcomes bracelets in my office in large bags. So they need to find wrists to be on. So there are plenty of opportunities for that. I have still a good stock of the Glencoe welcomes cards with the welcoming and inclusive community pledge. We printed more pledge boards on Coroplast, which is a more durable material. So we're kind of stocked and ready to go. So I will send the group some upcoming fall events and we can go from there.
Yeah, that would be great. You just reminded me actually that I'm losing track of all the conversations we're having. In addition to the folks who I've already mentioned, Raphael and I have had an opportunity to be in pretty close conversation with the Glencoe Park District, and specifically the gentleman who runs events. They have bent over backwards to encourage us to attend Thursday night concerts, any of the number of things that they do throughout the summer for families. So I actually have a tentative follow-up set with him for January when he is beginning to set the calendar for the next year, not so that we have input or anything, but so that we can begin to sort of think ahead. Are there natural opportunities here for us to be on site and promote our work that, align nicely with whatever it is that they're doing that night, because they had a number of different kinds of musical and acts, for example, on Thursday nights that, maybe there's a way for us to promote the inclusivity piece there as well. So anyway, there's a lot going on. We have some great momentum. We have wonderful partners. If there is any of this that's calling to you, please send Raphael and I an email. We can't do it by ourselves. So we would love support from any of you who feel like, wow, when you talk about the Park District, it just excites me, and how can I get more involved? We can do that.
I guess at this time, Anise, do you want to say something about your latest interview? I know I'm putting you on the spot. I apologize, but it
It's
was,
okay. Hi, everyone. It feels like it's been a long time. I'm sorry that I was late. I had trouble connecting. First, I was doing it from my car, and then I was doing it in my house. Equally difficult, but now I'm connected. Oh, and Raphael, I was hawking donuts with you. I was there.
I
You
didn't say
forgot
you weren't.
about me.
I didn't look, I didn't say you weren't, and I
I
didn't,
was
I didn't,
there.
I mean, it was a
I
lot
didn't
of,
get my honorable mention. I was like running after people very aggressively with donuts. Hillary's like, it's a little aggressive. I was like, well, but they look like they really want a donut. So like I gave away a lot.
no, and for
It
those
was,
that don't,
a lot of fun.
for those that don't know, Anise actually went to every single vendor stand and encouraged them to take donuts. And by the time it was over and it was raining, I've never seen so many people selling jewelry and goods and eating donuts at the same time. So she was very successful in her.
I did. That's my future, is selling donuts. I'd be good at it. So I interviewed Will, and it's like, this is like the longest interview that it's taken to sort of come to fruition. And I'm just waiting for one more thing, but he talked a lot, and there were a lot of quotes in there that I just wanted to make sure that he felt comfortable with, because he talked a lot and I'm a slow typist, and I just wanted to make sure that I was honoring like what he was trying to say. And so Sharon, I hope to get it to you by the end of this week. I had hoped to get it to you last week, but and it's a different kind of interview, because I am interviewing him, but I'm interviewing him on behalf of Glencoe Youth Services. So it's more like he's kind of being a spokesperson for the organization, and then also giving people sort of a sense of who he is as the director. And I don't know what else I was supposed to say, but that's pretty much where I'm at.
Anise, I think it's awesome. And first of all, just like for you and for everyone else, we're volunteers. We do the best we can. You don't need to apologize about it taking a while to get things done. And actually, as the older I get, the more I find like sometimes things happen in their own time, and that's where the synergy is. And I am really struck by the fact that we did have this connection with the Racial Justice Committee at Barb Javor's church, because I believe, and I might be speaking out of school here, but I believe that they worked closely with Will in the past. And so I'm just, my mind is going, and I'm thinking these are the, this is where it's at for us again, as conveners. And I think maybe the timing is just right. So thank you.
Thanks. I needed you in high school and college when I couldn't get my papers in on time.
Couldn't get my own
Those
papers
teachers to
done
be
on
like
time.
that.
But I think that interview and Will is a potential candidate for those the speaking series, because Glencoe Youth Services has been there for an incredibly long time. And the only reason why I was made aware of it was because my son started to go there, and then all of a sudden you find out that they do fundraisings. For instance, I think prior to COVID, they did a back to school supply drive where they collected goods and backpacks and sent it to a different, a community in need. They also collected food. So it's one of those organizations that doesn't get much airplay, for lack of better terms. And I think that because of his activity and his underutilization in his role, I think the interview is incredibly important. And for those that have children in middle school, it's that legitimate looking, really weird looking shack by the tennis courts that's over off Central School. Like there isn't even like there isn't a sign announcing it unless you get really close. And when my son spotted it out or pointed it out to me, I thought it was literally the storage for Glencoe Park District or the school, because there's not much to it. But what they do and how they do it is incredibly important, and I think that's why it's important that he gets some of the attention, not only from us but also consideration for future events that we have. Okay. So I suppose this is the section of other business, Sharon? Okay. Is there any other business that a member of the forum would like to raise?
I don't want to like overdo like what you were talking about before, but it just came to me. I want to throw it out there. When you guys were all talking about the stories in Glencoe, I was thinking about that project that was in the city. I don't know if it still exists, where you can like go with someone and they interview you, like your daughter interviews you and like kind of says like, Mom, like tell me about when you came to Glencoe or something like that. And they like record these archives and like people can listen to them at their leisure. I don't know if it's, I don't remember if it's through the library. I feel like NPR somehow isn't, I don't know what it is, but you know, down the line, it would be a nice way to record people's voices talking with someone who wants to interview them that has a relationship to that person, whether it's your neighbor or your sibling or your parent or your grandparent. And that if that was something that somehow we could navigate down the line, that is a way to archive and keep important stories with people who are obviously interested in wanting to know more about somebody they care about or invested in. I don't know who that would be through or how that might happen, but that just sort of came to mind.
We should bring it up then with the Historical Society. And you're referring to a program on NPR that they have on at least once a week. Those stories are archived with the Library of Congress in Washington, by the way. But I think it's an excellent idea to do locally.
Yeah, I think it's called StoryCorps or something like that, right, on Fridays.
Yes, you're right.
Mhm.
You're
That
correct.
is something, I don't know if that's what you meant, but there is something called that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, that's a good thing to bring up to the Historical Society. Because those stories are all here in Glencoe.
Hey, Anise, so I got this for Father's Day. And it's a journal for so my son is supposed to ask me all of these questions and fill it out. So I think you're thinking about something like that. I mean, there are so many resources like that where, I mean, it says it's a keepsake journal.
That's so cool.
So, and there are questions in here like, who taught you how to drive? You know, what's your earliest memory you have? Did you have a nickname? And then where did you go on your honeymoon? And like all kinds of everything. So there's so much we can do. I mean, it's just, it gets overwhelming when you start to think about where do you start and how do you do it. But I think Hillary said it earlier, we don't have to do it ourselves. There's so many organizations within the community that we can partner with to kick it off. And I think Reverend Kirk McKenzie's already doing that, already kicked it off, and John's been working on that as well. So great thought.
Yes, thank you, Anise. I think it's lovely that we're all sort of coming together on this idea. It's pretty exciting, actually. So is that, I think, any other business, any other business? And any comments, Sharon, from the public while we've been meeting, or that you unearthed in your Outlook?
None have come in. Unfortunately, I'm still not able to access that account. Outlook on the web is giving me some technical difficulties right now. So if there are any comments, I will be sure to make mention of them at the next meeting.
Thank you. With that, it is 6:29, and I think that we can make a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
Second.
I second.
All those, oh wait, I've got to do a roll call vote, sorry. Let me go back to my screen. Co-Chair Guzman,
Yes.
Co-Chair Scott,
Yes.
Member Bjork,
Yes.
Member Evans,
Yes.
Member Flanagan. Is Margo still here? No. Okay.
She needed to leave early. Sorry, that was my bad.
Got it. No worries. Reverend Kirk McKenzie.
Yes.
Member Molly.
Yes.
Member Moses.
Yes.
Member Mizell.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yes.
Member Rubin.
Yes.
Member Young.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. Motion carries. Have a lovely evening. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.